Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to go through output 1 now. I suppose maybe a few of you were waiting for further guidance on this as regards what I'm putting up on the channel. I had a few emails, a few very kind remarks about videos and so on, so thank you very much for all of that. Much appreciated. Always happy to do the work because I enjoy the challenge of teaching the subject, but I also, I really enjoy the aspects of the subject, the project work, the design work, and so on. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to present my output 1 to you guys to go through all of the different parts that are involved. Now I've taken the design brief and I've looked at it, and I'm going to give 3 pages to output 1. The maximum recommendation was 4. I'm going to take 3, and you'll see how I've used those 3 pages now. So I'm on Google Slides here at the moment, and you can see I have my main assignment page here. That's just the cover page, okay, and I have my details there and so on. Now what I want to do is I want to go through my first page. Okay, so if you looked at the brainstorm video the last time, which was just a brainstorm, alright, and I would have changed a few bits and pieces since then, what I've done is I have done an output 1 page with a balance of primary and secondary research, images, text, and so on. So if you can see here, alright, I have my design brief here, and what I've done is I've highlighted the key terms in the design brief. For example, keywords like dashboard, windscreen, mounting systems, adjustment, wide angle camera lens, power supply port, memory card slot, etc, etc. And then as well in the part A requirement here, the design investigation, existing dash cams, graphic format, analysis, physical form, shape, materials, connectivity, etc. Okay, and you can see there I've referenced the SEC because that's where I took that from. Okay, so when you're and it is something that I encourage you to do from the start, is to reference. Okay, and there are many slides referencing. In most cases all it involves is, if you've taken information from a website, just in brackets the name of the website, the year you took it, and then copy the URL and put it to the back of your document. Okay, so we'll get on with it. The first thing I did, alright, I'm thinking about this, alright, and pardon all the emojis, but I'm just trying to give a graphical representation of where my mood is as I go throughout the research. Okay, so I'm thinking about what's been asked. So I define what a dashcam is. Okay, I've taken that from the Oxford Dictionary, and I have a couple of pictures of dashcams here. Okay, and again, this is an A3 page, and all these are little text boxes. If you're using Google Slides, or if you're using PowerPoint, or if you're using Word, small text boxes and images, if you arrange them correctly, will blend very nicely onto the page. Okay, I got a fun fact then, that a woman accidentally made her first dashcam video as she was driven around by her son in the 1960s. Pub landlady Maud Mellors was testing out her new cine film as she sat in the passenger seat with her son Peter at the wheel. Okay, and I got that story from the Times, okay, a British newspaper, and I quoted the Times there, and you can see there's an image there of the actual footage. Now, what I wanted to get back into here then was, having stated what it is and a fun fact about it to get I suppose, to whet the appetite, I then look at technology development. I have a little time symbol here now, and we're going to have a look. So I started off here with a guy called Walter Brooke. So in 1942 he actually designed CCTV systems. They were initially developed to monitor V2 rockets, but then in 1949 it was kind of launched on a commercial basis for general surveillance. So to look further then in terms of, well, dash cams, well, the earliest known dash cams were found in the United States, Texas police vehicles in the 1980s. Okay, there's the typical state trooper vehicle there in Texas. Here's some guy here, alright, he is doing his own human dash cam, alright, he's out the window with his phone, and this footage was recorded by dash cam. So you can capture all sorts of information there. Linking back into that, the Texas police vehicles in the 1980s, they were actually camcorder technology, okay, which is crazy. You guys mightn't have even heard of it. Videos with actual tape inside, and it would be recorded, and then they could replay it back at a station, okay, and they would store it appropriately then. So what I did was I have a dash cam myself. I don't actually use it. I'll tell you the story why I don't use it, because I got it as a gift And the very first day I got it, I was very excited. I put it into the car, stuck it to the windscreen, and then as I was adjusting the tax disc in the front of my windscreen, I hit my head off the dash cam and I broke the mounting system. Okay, so now I'm just using it for the project. As you can see here, I've taken a few pictures just to point out the main parts and so on. Mounting system, you know, the front lens, so on. All my primary photos here, primary research here. And there's a display cabinet in a shop there as well, of different types of dash cams that was taken as well. So here then I link into the market. These are all the main brands here, Blackview, you know, iTech and so on. And the most interesting fact about the market is that it's really grown from the 2000s because of terror, arson, theft threats and increasing insurance claims regarding road traffic accidents. Now, the other thing here was that in 2019 the global dashcam market was valued at $2.8 billion. Okay, and the USA is the leading consumer. 2.8 billion. So you can see that it's quite a valuable market and quite a competitive market. And we're going to have a look at all the different, well, as many types as we can in the coming slide. So what do we have here typically with them? Like, well, the main function of the dash cam is to record, so lenses are really important. The main lenses that are being used now are fisheye lenses, 4K lenses, okay, they're all fisheye technology, okay, and what is fisheye? Well, basically the lens has curvature, additional curvature, so it can capture the environment around it, so you're not getting a 360 view, but you could be getting a 180 view, which is quite a considerable view, almost good as your own field of vision, okay. And I've talked about the lenses here, their capacity, and I've talked about audio visual. You know, a lot of the models have flat screen display with buttons and touch screen to play back information to have a look, but a lot of the stuff is also data is stored externally, which we get to in a few moments. I've done a little sketch here of the one I have. Very important to include a sketch in there, and that's the iTech FHD 1080p, okay. It's a full HD model. I just did a little sketch of it there and labeled a few of the parts. Then I'm looking at connectivity and so on, so GPS and data, the sensitivity around data, the importance of it, GPS tracking, so on. Covered all of that information in there, and again throwing in all those visible symbols so that when the examiner's having a look over this and when you're looking back on it, that you know where the information is by sight as much as by, you know, reading. Then I've looked at the type of mounting systems, okay. Sorry, just to jump back here as well, here I look at, you know, firmware and so on, and the software as well that goes into this stuff. I don't go into it in much detail, but I do acknowledge it, okay. Here, types of mounting systems, you know, you have two main types. You have either screen mounted or dashboard mounted. Okay, now there are other systems. There are ones that fit into your rear view mirror. If you're familiar with cars, the rear view mirror is in the center of the car at the front. You can actually buy a rear view mirror with a built-in camera. It'll record front and back. Quite smart and sleek and doesn't really have any mad impact on the car itself. And you can see that's one there. I've talked about power supplies here. I've talked about actually in those mounting systems, you know, the suction pads, clamp mechanisms, sticky Velcro pads, so on, how they actually secure and fit. The power supplies here, apologies about that hopping up at the bottom. So I looked at, you know, PV panel versions there as well that are available on the market. If you look down to the bottom left corner, you'll see there, you know, generally your power supplies, they plug into the dock or power ports within your vehicle, or into a charger bank. But you will find in very hot climates they're developing technology where the sticky pad to the windscreen is actually a set of PV panels, and PV panels being photovoltaic cells that actually capture light and heat and transfer it into energy that powers the device. Okay, so if you're in a really hot climate, that's probably going to be a really good feature and a really environmentally friendly feature, okay, and you're thinking sustainability there. So that's my first page, so I'm getting my head around it. We should know what a dash cam is, we should know the basic parts of it, lenses, mounting systems, it's software, connectivity features, data, and we should be able to have a look at one and understand one through sketching, okay, and the brands and so on. So there's quite a bit of information there. Now we're going to jump on to output 1.2, so the second page of my output 1. What I'm looking at now is I'm going more into the models, and I'm having a look at their shape, their design, their form, their function, their aesthetics. So here I have different shapes here. Okay, pill shape, square shape, cylinder shape, a rectangle shape, hybrid shape where we have two shapes blending into one another, and so on. Then I look at some of the functions, adjustability, the parts that rotate and clip and for the mounting and positioning within the car. Then I look at the typical button display, sound and storage functions, and I'm very keen here in this to kind of explain, that there's front view and rear view and GPS tracking, live tracking, map route calculations, all this sort of stuff is built into it. Then I'm looking here at like the audio and microphone speaker functions, the types of fittings and so on for power supply, be it into the device or into the car, SD cards fitting into the models and so on. And what I'm looking at is, and again here's power supply, I'm trying to get an understanding for the small details in the products now, okay? What really makes them work and the design of those details, okay? Anthropometrics and ergonomics are two areas that lead into the kind of the design and usability. For example, ergonomics is the study of how people interact with their environment, in particular the ease with which products are used. So I've looked here, dash cams that tend to have, very sleek, smooth features, can be, held in the palm of a hand and so on. And I've made sure to include all of that information there. And I'll get to the anthropometrics in a minute. The materials, you're looking at like aluminium, brushed steel, gloss matte texture plastic like PET, polyethylene titrate, acrylic, ABS, and I found that most of these are produced via vacuum forming or injection molding processes. Okay, suction pads are generally made from translucent static free rubbers. Okay, all these are important. And then we have LEDs added in there as well into certain models to enhance the light in the environment around the camera. So then we have looked briefly at measurements. We can see here general screen measurements, they tend not to be any less than 2.5 inches on the diagonal, which is, a useful fact in itself. But not all models have screens. A lot of the more modern ones and more expensive ones actually are Wi-Fi and Bluetooth enabled to transfer data back to your smart device in the car and even onto the main screen in your car, the display screen. So, the dash cam with the screen is actually, even though it's new, it's already going out of date as technology begins to advance. So you can see here how I've, just made a point of, looking at that. The anthropometrics linking into the ergonomics here, again, just a small note that, there's a database of information there that product designers and manufacturers use, for example, for when designing products. So, for example, the size of the average hand. If this thing is going to be something that's going to be clipped in by hand and so on, it needs to be something that, is going to be neat, easy to use, hold, and then can be clipped in and is not going to be really in the way. So all of that's very important. I've looked at the environmental aspect. One of the big things with company manufacturing procedures is they have to abide by an international standard of operation, which is an ISO 14001, which is for manufacturing sustainability. That makes sure that, for example, the energy put into the product and the processes are lean, that they are as energy efficient as possible, that materials are recyclable and have come from recyclable components and so on. And that, we also see then an add-on to that into the market, the green market, the PV and the solar panels and so on like that, and how they're being used. So after that then what I do is I look at the design aesthetics. Alright, you'll find that a lot of these dash cams, they are from grey to black, alright, because they're designed to be discreet. You'll find very few multicoloured models. Really the last thing someone wants with a dash cam is something that's really, really visible, like a luminous green in the front windscreen of their car. Okay, so the black tends to be the most popular colour. It's sleek, it's discreet. You can see here with some of the models how the smooth and sleek the surfaces are, seamless joints, very smart shapes, alright, very neat. See, pretty cool, this guy's impressed. And then you have your screen displays and so on at the back, and there's textured surfaces for grip. Alright, and you can see here with materials, you see type of textures, and you'll find that in some of the fittings, especially around the mountings where you need that bit of grip. Alright, but they're all aesthetic too, it gives it a look. Okay, you see a combination of grey and black here, and so it's that kind of techie look they really are quite, as I say, serious looking products, okay? And they gather some quite serious information. So from all of my exploration in the last 2 pages, I then decided, you know what, these are the two I'm going to compare, alright? I actually decided on the one I have, alright, which I had stitched into the initial output 1.1 and the output 1.2 here, and rightly so with my primary research. So that's the iTech FHD 1080p, that's a full high definition model, and then we have the Blackview 4K UHD ultra high definition model. So what I've got there is I've got one that's a very affordable product, the iTech, which retails around €63, and then I've got one at the very high end of the market, the Blackview. Even though it doesn't have a screen built in, it has so many wireless features and backup systems that it is, you know, priced in around €500 for the model. Alright, so that €500 like is like a considerable investment, and probably people who are buying that are very serious about recording the footage in their car. Okay, and you probably have police vehicles and so on, maybe that are using that, but maybe people who are driving for a living, taxi drivers and so on like that, who would need to have kind of any sort of evidence if they were in an accident to cover themselves to make sure that their insurance is alright. You can see a couple of pictures in here where you can see the items in the cars, alright, and that's important to see as well. They're both screen mounted, okay? So once I established that through all my search and that, and these were the two I really wanted to look at, then I go on and I do my my output 1.3, which is going to be a sketch page, which I'm actually going to zoom out to here now on the actual camera itself. Okay, and you can see I've just completed this page here today. I'll just knock off that bottom bit there. So I started it pretty much this morning, alright. So it took me about, you know, with the free time I had, about 2.5 hours to sketch all this out. What I have here is I have a nice big sketch here of my iTech 1080p FHD model, and then I have my Blackview 4K UHD model. What I've done then is I have used colour on text, and I've used colour on headings, and I've used kind of surrounding colours here on to highlight the models and so on. But you can see here with buttons, lens, sound microphone, data storage, mounting adjustability, main body shapes, other features, suction pad cup, power and data ports, and any other topical information that I could throw in as well, like measurements. You can see them put in here and so on, and you can see how I've rendered. I haven't gone really heavy with the render. I have in some places, but in others, for explanatory reasons, there's no point in me colouring everything in absolutely black. Then it'll only look like just pure black blobs on the page, and we don't want that because it won't look very friendly. And this is a graphical exploration, and what I'm doing here is I'm really looking at, you know, the actual products. Like for example, you can see here my iTech, okay, and you can see the buttons in there, and when I was sketching that, I was just looking at it, you know, and I sketched it. Now I didn't include the little screws or anything like that because I wouldn't intend down the line whether I pick one or the other. I haven't made my mind up yet, but if I do pick one or the other, you know, like things like the little screws there won't be exactly on my priority list for modelling. The main shapes certainly will be. You can see here the LEDs, the lens and so on, and I have also the power supply equipment, and I also have the remainder of the screen mounting part as well. Okay, so, and what I do is throughout all the sketches I explain all of that. Now you might be wondering where I got the information for the Blackview model, since I don't have that. Well, it's very lucky online. When I looked through all the dash cams, and that's because of the research I did, I actually found that there was quite a lot of information on this one, okay, regarding, you know, sizes, performance, all the different parts and bits and pieces. Like for example, this model has so many extra little bits and pieces. It has like a rear coaxial cable for a rear view camera. It has this little power box. It has the power port supply that you plug into the car. And what I've done and you can see the features here at the end, little kind of additional jack leads, disconnect buttons. You can see here that the mounting system actually uncouples itself here. It slides on, it grips onto this rotating wheel here that can be twisted to adjust the position, and that obviously adjusts the camera position. And I've found out so much information from really looking at them. The storage capacities of both devices, like this ultra high definition, the files are heavier, so you need greater data storage. For example, the standard recommendation for the Blackview model is a 256 gigabyte card, SD card, whereas for the iTech one, it's just a 16 gigabyte card, which is still lowest, but you're not getting the same quality of footage. And you can see how that pops into that there. However, on the actual Blackview model, that SD card pops into a separate piece. All right, so you have a number of separate pieces along with the Blackview, but they all work in the car environment. Okay, and this can act as a little dongle that you can attach to your own keys, so it can be like a keyring. Look, you park your car, it can still be sending live footage right to you. Okay, and once you have that there, it connects out to your device. Okay, and all that footage that's going from here to here, all the way to here, which could be you in a shopping centre, onto your phone. Okay, so that's quite interesting. Okay, I looked at some of the features there, little buttons and so on, little aesthetic things. The sound bar on the Blackview there is all these like little square holes perforated into the surface, very neatly arranged, mainly for, there's an array of them, it's aesthetic. Again, there you can see with the iTech model, much smaller in the bottom corner there, and so on. And I'm highlighting all of these features. Prices are included there, €500, €63. I've done kind of like a little orthographic here, plan or elevation plan, and you can see an end view over here. I didn't do it here because I knew I was going to be drawing it over here, and in a bigger version as well. Then I have below it, then I have the elevation and the end view for the Blackview. Then I have the screen here for the iTech. Okay, I've all the mounting equipment here for the iTech model. Okay, it has these, it's all plastic, and the one thing I would say is this system here, actually there's aluminium in this system. Alright, so actually this is much more hardware durable. It has this rotating bearing system. Alright, so it tends to be less finicky than say this model here, the iTech one. These are all plastic components. Alright, textured for grip and that, but as I found out, as I leaned across my dashboard, I hit my head off this part and it broke the bottom connector here that goes into here. Okay, so quite unfortunate, but look, it is what it is. Then here you can see as well, I've highlighted the kind of suction pad there, that's on the Blackview. Any detail that I could put in there, and I've wrote the notes. You see the notes, how they're all going, I've kept them all straight. They haven't gone off at an angle one way, an angle another way. For presentation purposes, keep them neat. And you see there for the headings, I done all block capitals, and then for the writing here, I kept it fairly simple, like my normal writing, and just try to keep it as neat as possible. You don't have to go drawing in grid lines or anything like that, or guidelines that you'd be using for graph text. No, you don't have to do that. Okay, in fact, if the more free and neat you can be with it, the better. Okay, and I use color to highlight the text to bring it off the page a little bit. Okay, you can see down here other features. I've highlighted the kind of the lighting aspects to both, and again the lights are just there to brighten up the environment if it's a little bit dull, so that your footage is not suffering from poor environment and climate conditions. Highlighted the suction pads and cups here. The Blackview one has some Pitilsoft technology. There's a patent on that for the type of suction you get off it. It's not as abrasive as this type of suction. It's much sleeker and it works much better. Apparently that's what it says on the tin. Again here all the kind of power and data ports. You see the little cables. They've made sure to highlight where they go, what they're made of, and so on. A lot of these are generic components. And then, as I said, the buttons earlier, you can see them. Lenses here, I've talked about the convex nature of lenses as well. And again, I've got little diameters. They range from 6 to 12.5. Now most models you're operating around a 6mm lens, and the lens is not the bit right at the very front. It's actually the protection cover on most of them, and then in behind that you'll see a smaller circle, and that will be the lens itself. Okay, I've highlighted here in the mounting systems as well the directional arrows, just to show how these things rotate and so on. I find that that's useful when you're communicating the idea across to the examiner, and you just want to hear like with these orthographics here, I'm really just commenting on shapes. Like for example here, rectangular shape with a series of curves across the top, length and width. Okay, and that's, you know, that's the shape explained. It's sleek and smooth surface. All right, it's made of plastic. Okay, you know, I've all that information in there. Okay, so that's my my output 1 done. So just to recap on that, okay, without getting too fancy about it, so that's my output 1.1 right there. Okay, you can see it covered all the main information, blend of primary and secondary research. Output 2 again, blend of primary and secondary research. Okay, and just to note there as well, in output 1.1 that I had a little sketch in there. Could have thrown a sketch in here into output 1.2 as well of different bits and pieces. Maybe I could be criticised for that. Yeah, I'm fine, I'm open to that. I kind of ran out of space for what I was doing. But by all means, if you want to throw more sketches into the first 2 pages of it, grand. But you know, my main emphasis was, you know, getting those pages right with the minimum amount of sketches to get all the sketches in here into the final graphical comparison for output 1, which is the 1.3 page, as I have just explained. And I have covered most aspects there when you read them in detail. So look, I hope the video has been of help to you. If you have any questions, you can email me at info@lio.ie. So that's info@lio.ie. But you know, I appreciate if you'd click and subscribe to the page as well, or if you have any other friends taking the subject and they're interested in you know, kind of just, I suppose, what would you say, like, you know, developing their own bit of knowledge about it outside of the classroom, then by all means do so. Look, as I say, this is my interpretation of an output 1. It won't be perfect. Will it be scoring in a kind of a very extensive criteria considered, which would be the top end of the marking for the output 1? I would hope so. Okay, now I can't actually quote the amount of marks there at the moment because I don't know the specific breakdown for this new layout for the project this year, as there's been a reduction in pages. But when there is, we can certainly do a session and break that down. But in the meantime, what I would say, get to it, get your research, alright, you know, build your story, okay, start with the brief, get to the early development, get into the ones that you have directly, get your head around it, look at the brands, look at the main features, what it does, mounting, camera lenses, connectivity, then get into the itsy bitsy stuff about how it actually works, alright, you know, why it works that way, how it's beneficial, you know, the typical information that you'd want in a product, sizes, the look of it, materials, all that sort of stuff, and then get your 2 out of it. And if you have one at home or you have access to one, I would recommend that you stitch that in over output 1 and output 2 so that you can bring it out into the output 1 or output 1.1, 1.2, that you can bring it into output 1.3. Okay, so, and again, that's probably a better view of the output 1.3 than the one I've just taken a picture of. So look, thanks very much for tuning in. All the best. I will be developing out my output 2 in the coming week. Okay, I'll be picking one of these 2. You know, I have this one, but I mightn't use it. I like this one here, the cylindrical one, and I think from a SolidWorks point of view, it could be, you know, a little simpler. Because there are little bits and pieces here that could be tricky, but again, I won't let that determine my decision. I'll make my mind up in the coming days, and I'll have an output 2 done hopefully by this day next week, and then I'll be leading into SolidWorks after that, and we'll be able to kind of really escalate the project in terms of the part day. Okay, so in the meantime, be safe, be good in school, enjoy the subject, enjoy the work. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.